Now that we have entered the world of complex numbers, we can look at quadratic equations and look at their solutions in the complex world. So let's imagine that we have x squared minus 4x plus 13, and we want to find the complex solutions. So we could try to factor, but this will not factor. So let's use the quadratic formula. So we have negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac. That's all over 2a. So x equals negative 4 plus or minus the square root of the square of b, so the square of negative 4, minus 4 times a times c. That's all over 2 times a. So we have 4 plus or minus the square root of 16 minus 52 all over 2. Now, this is equal to 4 plus or minus, now 16 minus 52 is negative 36. This is all over 2. So we have 4 plus or minus, the square root of 36 is 6, and the square root of negative 1, we're going to write as I. This is all over 2. So we must write this in a plus bi format. So we have 4 over 2 plus or minus 6 over 2 I. So we have 2 plus or minus 3i. So again, we have 4x squared minus 4x plus 13. Identify a, b, and c. So you try this one. Pause the video and see what you obtain. So we have x equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. So we have negative 4 plus or minus the square root of b squared will be the square of negative 4 minus 4 times a times c. All over 2 times a. So we have 4 plus or minus the square root of 16 minus 208. That's all over 8. So this is equal to 4 plus or minus the square root of negative 192 over 8. Now, let's look at 192. 192 is divisible by 4. We can break it up into 2 first. 2 times 96. 96 is 2 times 48. That's 2 times 24. And 24 is 2 times 12, which is 2 times 6, which is 2 times 3. So we have pair of 2's, pair of 2's, pair of 2's. So that would be 2 times 2 times 2 whenever I take the square root. So that's 4 plus or minus the square root of 192 will be 8. That's from the square root of this pair, the square root of this pair, and the square root of this pair, all multiplied. So 2 times 2 times 2 is 8. And you'll notice that there is a 3 that is unpaired. And then the square root of a negative is going to yield the I. So we have 4 plus or minus 8 root 3 I all over 8. Let's split this up into real and imaginary parts. So we have 1/2 plus or minus the square root of 3 I. Make sure that the I is not underneath the radical. Now that we have entered in the world of complex numbers, we can revisit the idea of the discriminant. The first two cases, where b squared minus 4ac, the discriminant is positive, doesn't change. There are two unequal real solutions. B squared minus 4ac equals 0, again, repeated real. But if our discriminant, that portion underneath the radical, is negative, that means we are introducing an imaginary unit. So again, we have two non-real solutions, but these solutions are complex conjugates of each other.